Hey everyone, this is Giancarlo Veronini. We're here at the 2K Games booth to check out BioShock 2, and joining us is Alyssa Finley, who is the executive producer on BioShock 2. So, can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here at E3?
Well, in BioShock 2, for the single player, we're talking about how you don't play an outsider like Jack. You play in BioShock 2, it's 10 years later in Rapture, but you play a Big Daddy. And not just any Big Daddy, but the very first prototype Big Daddy.
And so, how does that sort of come into effect in terms of the gameplay?
Well, it means that you've got the Big Daddy's weapons for a start. So you can use the drill, you can use the Daddy Dash, you can use the rivet gun, and it means you can use plasmids now, which most Big Daddies don't get to do. So it really opens up a whole new set of gameplay. Big Daddy's a tough guy. He's a lot tougher than those splicers you're used to seeing. So it changes the dynamics of walking around Rapture quite a bit.
Now, in the original game, Big Daddies were responsible. They were the guardians of the Little Sisters. So how does that relationship change in BioShock 2?
Well, in BioShock 2, as a Big Daddy, you can adopt any little sister that you find in the world unattended, or that you put in the world unattended. And what that means is you can pick her up, you can carry her around the world with you, deploy her on corpses to gather Adam. And when that little sister has all the Adam that she can gather, you have a choice to make. Do you harvest that little sister, or do you save her?
Oh God, don't make me make that choice again. So what's the benefit of adopting the little sister versus harvesting her?
Well, if you harvested a little sister right away, she'd probably have a little bit of Adam. But if you take her around in the world and gather Adam from corpses, she'll have a whole lot more. So it's really an investment. It's if you want to get some more Adam, you put in the time, you take on the danger, you can get the reward.
Now, of course, a lot of the things from the original game are back, things like the plasmids. Can you talk a little bit about what sort of changes are being made to that and how we'll see our character, the Big Daddy, grow in the game?
Well, plasmids have evolved quite a bit in the last 10 years. So in BioShock 1, you had an incinerate plasmid. I use it on you, you catch on fire. Pretty straightforward. Now the incinerate plasmid has a whole new dimension, whereas incinerate 1, sure, same thing. Upgrade that to incinerate level 3, and it's basically like a flamethrower coming out of your hand. Lets you really interact with the world in quite a different way. On top of that, we've had combinations between plasmids. So you can throw down a vortex trap in BioShock 1, you step on it, fly up in the air, and hit your head on the ceiling. Now, I can lay down that same vortex trap, charge it up with incinerate, and not only do you step on it, fly up and hit your head on the ceiling, but you're also on fire.
That sounds excellent. And as we've seen from the BioShock 2 trailer, another important aspect of it is the Big Sister. Can you talk a little bit about her?
Well, the Big Sister is somebody who's got a whole lot of history in Rapture 2. She's actually come back to Rapture, and she's bringing Little Sisters back into Rapture. Because the Little Sisters, they left when Tenenbaum did. But the Big Sister wants to bring Rapture back to the way it used to be. She's bringing in Little Sisters, pairing them with Big Daddies, trying to start that whole cycle all over again. And the Big Sister is somebody who's really interested in what happens to those Little Sisters. So if you interact with them, she'll be watching what you do.
Sounds sinister.
Yeah.
So also another big aspect of BioShock 2 is now it has multiplayer. Can you describe a little bit about what the multiplayer will be like?
Well, one of the modes that we're demoing today is called the Survival of the Fittest mode. It's basically every man for himself. In the multiplayer, it's ordinary citizens of Rapture, and they've been recruited by this company called Sinclair Solutions, who's a product testing lab, and they're basically trying to take advantage of the economic conditions caused by the Civil War to get ordinary citizens out there testing out these various plasmids and these various weapons to see what the most effective ones are for home security and safety. And you get to play the part of one of those ordinary citizens taking part in those trials and showing Sinclair Solutions how well their products are working.
And so this is also a prequel to the original BioShock?
That's right. Multiplayer is set a year before the events of the original game, during the Civil War that took place leading up to that New Year's Eve 1959 explosion in Kashmir restaurant.
And so, will any sort of the gameplay elements? It looks like plasmids will be a part of the multiplayer. Will the Big Daddy factor into it at all?
Well, it's not BioShock without the Big Daddy, is it? So yeah, the Big Daddy, you absolutely can play a Big Daddy in BioShock 2 multiplayer. What happens is, if you find a suit lying around in the world, you can put on that Big Daddy suit, and then while you have it on, you get to play as the Big Daddy. Changes up the power dynamic, makes you the biggest tough guy in the map, also makes you the biggest target in the map.
So it looks like some of the locations we'll be seeing in the multiplayer were in BioShock 1, but they've been re-envisioned for BioShock 2?
Yeah, because the multiplayer is set a year before the events of the original game, the multiplayer spaces are inspired by the spaces in BioShock 1. But every one of them has been completely rebuilt and reimagined to make sure that it fits really well from a multiplayer point of view. Because our number one priority in multiplayer is making it feel like a great multiplayer game.
And can you talk a little bit about any of the other modes that will be featured in the multiplayer?
Well, one other mode is called Civil War, and that's basically a more team-based mode for sort of similar to Team Deathmatch.
And in terms of the plasmids, we saw in the demo that there's 2 different states for the plasmids that you can use.
Well, you could use the regular plasmid, or you can charge it up, and when you charge it up, you get a more powerful, more prolonged attack.
Okay, that sounds awesome. When can we expect BioShock 2 to come out, and on which platforms?
BioShock 2 is going to come out on November 3rd for PC, 360, and PS3.
Great, thank you for joining us. Stick with GameSpot for more coverage of E3 2009.